eventually arrive at it and we would know the universe. That was modernity. We now live in the postmodern age in terms of intellectual thought. And the postmodern age really comes about after Einstein. Einstein destroys the possibility of absolute truth. If you know anything about Einstein's theory of relativity, the basic problem is if you have two spaceships, you've got spaceship Dan and spaceship Helen, right? Spaceship Helen looks out her window and sees spaceship Dan zooming across the sky. Spaceship Dan looks out his window and sees spaceship Helen zooming across the sky. Which one is moving? And the answer, basically, that Einstein proves is there's no absolute reality. There's only relativity, right? There's only relativism as it's applied within the humanities. That in the end, we're only left with relative truths rather than any absolute truth. So I want you to just keep, does that make sense? Do those three ideas make sense? So I want you to just keep those three ideas in mind as you're reading Rambam, because there was a long time, Rambam was living clearly in a pre-modern age, right? Modernism and modernity doesn't really begin until the Enlightenment, it's in the mid-19th century. Maybe a little before that. It really hits its peak in the mid-19th century. And so many people have for a long time suggested that Rambam really approached modernity. He was almost a modern living long before modernity. I'll give away my thesis, which I'm going to present later. Rambam is a postmodern. He's not a modern. That he discovers postmodernism living 1,000 years ago. Rambam was at the cutting edge of academic thought for today, living 1,000 years ago. So anyways, let's go ahead and try to break up into groups that are not familiar people, and dig into these texts. And get lost in these discussions. Really, if you find yourself on a tangent that's dealing with these big questions, awesome.
Yeah. I'm tired and exhausted.
This came about for years. I did opportunities to be that.
Sorry?
I wouldn't have realized if I remembered. And what's his name? I was just thinking about that because I remember listening to your house
You probably had to remove it.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this? What's going on? And the other day, we had someone stay at our house, 2.5 years, and what is this? I swear I was in the
Yeah, it's live stream, so go to YouTube and then Google the synagogue.
So I hope they have to at least understand we'll see. And again, if you're lost or I can help, just like throw up your hands or call for me. That's cool. That's a good idea. Okay. So class really It's not a rationalized, so that's what we talk about. It's talking about that. Yes, where do you all at? Intellectual apprehension. It's the apprehension. I know. I did this for myself for 20 minutes. Okay, that's a good text. Where's one?
Through the years.
Some of the people so it comes to okay, where are you at? She'll just read the whole thing. A little bit, in some ways, that's the rationalists. There's no team. We don't have rations. The form of the rations. Class. Okay, so let me show you how root method is set to tell out, and then you talk about what it means. Tell everyone agrees. Have root method of two people bringing inside stuff. Okay, so like this. So Rambam's immediately says there were two Actually, by in the translator to this day, professors love walking in. Trying to get everybody good. And generally succeed. So, that was good. Okay, where are we at? So where are we mysteries? Saying the sickness thing, there is no okay. Classic this condition is responsible for those are efficiency. We never see attention in sense. Then there are those bars that no exception. All these commitments and all these commitments you can't understand. That's part of the problem. Right? Yes. That's exactly what one that I think is close to home for us, I think, is for so many parents, when we say prayers, there's so many amazing things to do. And saying the same things in Jewish Rambam talks about that too. But you like things that you can't understand. So little of ourselves that we can't understand what's kind of more valuable. We can't understand. So that's what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Okay. That is perplexing. Okay, are you okay? Read it now, or you say yeah, okay, so he's being very technical. That's understanding sacrifices too. Most of the radical pieces and sacrifices. Right. In fact, it was on the next development better than fair. Because science and legislation nature. Really means by that? Well, so I don't think he means it. He means by all greatest religious Second temple was destroyed. Second was 70 Yes. Yes, exactly. Another large building. Can I help with anything, or are you all okay. Okay, what was our Okay, nice. Nice. What does Rama mean by making it? What does that mean? Get that thing right Correct. It doesn't mean okay. So, when Rama establishes here, you really got to learn to be Rama to someone who's not quite there. Achieve intellectual creative. So it's not kind of clear, but right, that's also some trouble questions for us today.
Who was Abraham's father? He was a statuist, right? And so Abraham was
What is the sexual nature of the chair? That is flip it around. What we mean by the truth of that absolute, they're not maintaining that. What we mean by the absolute truth of the universe represents that is God. So that is the essence of God.
What is that?
He did, yes, he certainly did. He certainly did. He was quite proud of himself. No, he is.
You're right.
Maybe the image. Okay, so first it's trying. The best way to do we all just said, what is this dream? We all said, and then discuss what it is. Okay, you read this text together? Okay. So,
I shouldn't have.
you just wrote. I was. You know, like when you're. We did that. One more, I think I have. Does anyone use any? Yeah, to the next week, night class, 3 hours. Adjunct religious studies professor. Waiting to be unionized. Oh, nice. What's that? Yeah. Right now. Okay. So. This is all your fault. Yes. So I guess that many of us are more perplexed now than okay, so first to note on belief, because that's sort of the overall topic here. One of the troubling aspects of Judaism, particularly living in American Christian and even more so Protestant culture, is that we don't mandate belief. Rambam is the most important Jewish thinker, perhaps who has lived, but at least in the last few thousand years. You can disagree with what Rambam thinks. That's totally fine. We don't have mandated belief, right? Judaism, classically, the axis of religiosity. If you look at Protestantism, the axis of religiosity is faith, is belief. To be more religious is to be more pious, is to be more faithful, to believe more. Of course, pious is a Jewish term, right? Pious. And I think that's exactly the idea. That Judaism doesn't mandate belief. We don't have proper belief. We don't have orthodoxy in that sense. We have orthopraxis. We have proper action. Right? Judaism will be very clear, right? If you, within ultra-Orthodox Judaism, you have to get out of bed and put your right foot down before your left foot. That's how regulated proper action is in that world. But what you think God is, oh, whatever. Right? Like you can have a whole huge range of different things that you believe about. They don't care about that. Okay. So I say that as an introduction, simply that what I'm going to introduce about Rambam and Rambam's idea of God, I love. Because for me, it gave me the first God language that I felt I could speak with a deep sense of authenticity. I was my head works. I'm not a scientist, God knows, but my head works in a sort of methodical, building an argument kind of way. And Rambam works for me. For people who really connect much more on a spiritual level, a mystic level, right? We'll talk Heschel instead. Okay. So I'm going to talk. I'm going to actually close that door. I think that's what we'll close out some of that noise. I'm not sure that made any difference at all. So if you're confused while we're talking, interrupt, ask questions. We're going to cover some of the areas that you can sort of be a part of this discussion. But if you have a question about one of the texts that's not covered, just let me know. Okay, let's talk about the guide. And within certain circles, when you say the guide, everyone knows what you're talking about. There was someone here, who was it, who said they tried to read it a couple years ago?
Well, we did it on Saturday.
Yeah, we read it in our congregation.
Okay, through the entirety of it?
No, just one side.
TJ selected specific.
Specific portions,
Yeah.
okay.
We spent a long time debating.
Okay.
Yeah.
A long time indicated, yes. So many people read the guide and become even more classic, right? So the first question about the guide is how it should be taught. Rambam has an idea that only the beginning pieces, if you read the introduction to the guide, this is what he says about it, that only the beginnings of chapters, in a sense only the subject headings should be taught. That you should just get the pieces, and from there, be able to derive the rest of the ideas. Right? He doesn't want to give it to you. Part of it is he's scared that he's going to be labeled a heretic, and he's going to be denounced. He's probably, first time accurate, right? He absolutely would have been labeled a heretic. He's now mainstream, but, right? So he's only going to give you the title headings, and then he's going to give you those basic pieces, and then if you're smart enough, you can figure out the rest, right? It's like geometry, right? They teach you the rest of the rules in geometry. That's Rambam's point. That's the idea with the guide. Pedagogically, of course, it turns students into active participants rather than passive learners, right? So there's a pedagogical idea there. Your goal becomes to understand not what the Rambam is saying, but what the Rambam is not saying. So beyond the fact that he's only giving you the headings, scattering the pieces throughout the guide. He's not organizing them by topic. The different pieces of the same topic, it's chaotic, right? It's enough to make us think that Rambam is just disorganized. I mean, truly. But he made the Mishnah Torah, so we know that that's not the case. So we know that that's not the case. He does it on purpose. In order to understand the guide, you functionally have to become the writer, right? He's only giving you the chapter headings, you have to write the rest of the chapters. You're functionally becoming the editor of the guide, because you're having to reorganize everything. And then there's the most radical move of all. And he tells you he's doing all this. This is what the introduction is all about. And he basically says, that you don't understand what you're going to understand it, and I only wanted those smart enough to understand it. I told you he's a real elitist. So the last piece is that he puts purposeful contradictions within the guide itself. He lays out two different things that totally contradict with each other. And you're supposed to bring those two things together and realize that they create a key that unlocks a door. Right? It's this great mystery. And that is why people classically become more perplexed when reading the guide. The final thing about the guide is it ends with an oath. That if you manage to do these three things, if you manage to write the rest of the chapters, if you manage to be the editor and reorganize everything, and if you manage to resolve the paradoxes, then you have to promise not to teach them to anyone.
So we just all pretend that we did that.
So
I'm not telling you.
Oh, you don't understand? Oh, I'm sorry. So,
I have sworn.
in a nonsense, every on the likes. Yeah, there you go. So,
I actually think it was Johnson.
so part of it is that the guide's written as a letter. It's written as a letter to a specific student. Of peeking into someone else's face with that. And one of the things that the guide does, right? We all looked at the text that talks about mysteries and how mysteries are silly, right? Some of us looked at that text. Rambam's basic idea is there are all sorts of people who say that tons of the Jewish laws, what we call chukim, cannot be understood and shouldn't be understood, and we shouldn't try to understand them. And Rambam says this is because we have low self-esteem. And that's basically what he's saying. He's saying, he's talking about the same loves things everything in English. We're like about the mystery that raises its value for us. Right? There's something about those things that we can't understand that makes them more valuable, right? The other example I give is that, so I teach a class at Bradley University, the Religious Studies Department. Every once in a while, if I'm teaching an idea, I'm trying to understand it, I'm close, but it's really still sort of fuzzy in my head. Afterwards, the student will come up invariably and goes and say, wow, that was so deep. Right, you know, that's sort of the idea. The piece that we can't understand must have that depth, must have that power to it. And it's low self-esteem, right? Like the thing we can't understand is the valuable piece. The things we can't understand, like if I can understand them, what are they worth, right? So Rambam's denying that idea. Rambam's denying that idea, and in such, the guide itself explains all the mysteries, and he understands that we crave these mysteries. We need them. And so the book is designed to resolve all is designed to perplex you, right? Okay.
Is that because of spiritual attainment or intelligence?
So Rambam would say that there's no distinction, right? When we looked at, and that's what the text about, great question, that's what the text about being made in the image of God is, right? Rambam is using an Aristotelian idea that, what does he mean by image? He means by image is the same thing that Aristotle What is it? So for Rambam, his definition of God is the truth of the universe. Capital T, truth. Absolute truth is God. Now, notice what Rambam's doing. That's in one of these groups we talked about. This is a math equation. There's an equal. On both sides of that. And just like what you know about the absolute truth of the universe. We can attain it, not that we know it, but the idea, the Aristotelian, the Platonic ideal of the absolute truth of the universe. Rambam says that is what we mean by the word God. He's saying, take everything you know about God and okay, so the absolute truth is God. So what does it mean to be made in the image of God? If the essence of God is truth, then to be made in the image of God is to be able to understand truth. To apprehend, right? This is that phrase, intellectual apprehension there, that the translator uses. To be made is the way that you can. There's some troubling issues here that we're not going to delve into today with Rambam's idea, right? So for instance, people who are mentally handicapped, are they made less in the image of God? Hold on, according to Rambam is my point. I'm not talking about our ethics today, but Right? So there are some troubling questions raised by Rambam's idea that we're going to just brush aside and pretend they don't exist for the purposes of our conversation.
But it also, it also goes to the point of how we define creation. Because I bet that everyone in some small sense does something to create.
Yeah, and that's actually the move that the Hasidim end up doing with Rambam. That's what Pastor Rebbe does. Is he expands Rambam from being just intellectual creativity to more broadly what we mean by creativity today. That's what it means to be made in the image. Kind of like that a little better.
No. But I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I work in a mentally handicapped home.
Okay.
In a group mentally handicapped home. And I beg to differ to the thing that their intellect is, their intelligence levels, but their reasoning and ability to think and create their own thoughts, while they may not be on the intelligence level of ours, some days mine, yes, but
We know they're creating.
they're creating, so who says that they are not as worthy as...
That's exactly
That's
right.
what say they are, that's exactly.
Yeah, that's what Pastor Rebbe does. He says, yes, exactly. In the positive sense. Yeah, so that's the expansion that Pastor Rebbe makes. It ends up including those pieces too. So yes, absolutely. Your point is that that's correct.
Something along the lines of the townhome would have said to creating what one is capable of creating. Where they're intellectual challenge.
Okay.
There's no real home.
No, I,
We've been addressed.
I've been, really, this happens for the last year to say opposed to other animals. I mean, know about evolution. I mean, and what do we have in fact that is different, that is in the image of God? And you can address the same thing in terms of mental handicap. I mean, we're still talking about a spectrum. Is there at some point a qualitative as opposed to a quantitative difference that we can point at?
Dolphins.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's not get tired, which is that Rambam begins the Mishnah Torah. And I don't think any group did this, the very first text. He begins the Mishnah Torah by proving, in a sense, the God that he proves is God of entirely other. Right? We don't have trouble believing in this God, right? God is that. God is the word that we use for the absolute truth of the universe that is unattainable. Right? God is the absolute truth and it is unattainable. We don't have a problem with that definition, right? Scientists wouldn't have problems with that definition. But the problem with Rambam's definition of God is like, what's the point of praying to that God? You throw out the whole prayer, you throw out, right? What's the whole point?
Well, what's the point of prayer? I mean, it's kind of, should not are asking God for something. Prayer is about us, and at best, our relationship to God. But you're talking into very different.
We tend to be skeptical.
You hope for a 9-hour relationship. It's kind of one-sided most of the time, which doesn't make it useless.
It's an attempt to communicate.
Which said?
An attempt to communicate.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Rambam's really paying attention to here is that there's really a tension between God and religion. Right? The bigger you make God, the sillier and small religion seems. Right? Rambam's God, Rambam's image of God. Like, what's the point of prayer, or what's the point of keeping kosher, or what's the, right? Like, even look at the miracles. Like, a God the size of Rambam's God, part of the Red Sea, these are parlor tricks, right? In the bigger you make religion, the smaller and more aware of this tension. Very, very aware of this tension. So what Rambam ends up saying is you can't know God. You can't know God. All you can know instead is science. If you can't ever know God, if you understand the universe, if you understand God's creation, then you get closer to knowing God.
In this case, knowing the human body as a doctor.
Knowing the human body is a doctor. At this point, too, we're talking about the star. He's really talking about physics. And that is the closest you.
Isn't it interesting that Rambam, coming from a very rationalist position, winds up not all that far from the Kabbalists who say you cannot attain the Ein Sof in the out there. So at best you can reach the lower seventh sphere.
So we're going to get to the Kabbalists, I promise. So particularly for people who have no idea what he just said, we'll get there. So Rambam creates this world in which you can't know God. You can only know creation. Right? That's modernity. That's the modern idea. You can discover the truth of creation. You can discover the truth of science. And in doing so, but the real radical thing that is in the guide is if you pay attention to the paradoxes. Rambam has the entire second book of the guide. The guide's made of 3 books. The entire second book, if anyone's ever looked at it, is all about astronomy of his day. Like, it's really why anyone would read it today. Cutting edge astronomy of 1200.
You believe in the first century?
He has a whole conception of spheres rotating in the sky. Yeah. But Rambam talks about astronomy in 2 different places. And if you look at them, they don't work together. They don't work together. He already told us the piece you want to spend the most attention looking at are the paradoxes. Rambam creates a modern idea. You can't know God, so you can only know physical reality. You can only know science. But in the end, what Rambam says is you can't even know science. You can't, that in the end, the man who created a book that was all about explaining away the mystery, explaining away the paradoxes, in the end, that's only the second level, right? The first level of reading the book is, I am so confused. The second level of reading the book is, oh, I got it. I'm on the inside. He's created modernity. He's redefined God in all these ways that work with science. He's done all of these, right? That's the second level. But in the end, there's a third level to the guide as well. And this is where you like it a little more. The third guide says you can't know science either. Ever, when you're within the truth, you can only have relative truths. So the question for us, and this is the question we will leave with, at least not that I know of, the question we will leave with, because this will lead into what we're doing tomorrow, is in a world without absolute truth, in which absolute truth is impossible, why be Jewish? Right? What does it mean, the 2 great commandments? The 2 great commandments.
There's no absolute truth. Where else are you going to wind up?
The 2 great commandments are Ahavat Hashem, the love of God, and Yirat Hashem, fear of God. Right? And Rambam talks about all these. So in the end, what he says is, why be Jewish? That's sort of the answer. Right? It's a little, the reason to be Jewish is because it makes you a better person. And because you like your life better that way. right? What Rambam means, he totally redefines these two great commandments, Yirah and Ahava, fear and love. Right? We hear all about the fear of God. We tremble before God, right? What he means by Yirah is that sense of looking out into the stars and feeling so very small and insignificant.
Here's a lousy translation.
Fear is a lousy translation. That's what he means. And what he means by awe, yeah, right? But awe in the sense not, sometimes we have awe in the sense of the awesomeness of us in our world. This is awe that makes us very, very small to the point of insignificance. And ahava, what does it mean to love heaven? What does it mean to love God in this sense? Like love a God that you can't know or say anything about. What does it mean? It's that moment of a new idea. It's the moment of creativity. It's the moment of beauty, of a painting, of looking out and seeing a sunset that speaks. That is what he ends up meaning by love. Love of heaven, love of God. Smallness and bigness, right? We talked about it during services today. And that was, I didn't introduce it then, but that was the Rambam-ish reading of the Sefer. How do we read these prayers? Smallness and bigness. Okay. Questions, thoughts?
Science is, I guess, very much like theology then, because most scientists are not enamored with the science of the day, the scientific product, but rather the scientific. And the scientific method is now established that now has to be tested and improved, and you're never going to stop, or else all the scientists would be on jobs.
Correct. Yeah, that is a very contemporary understanding of science that will never have the absolute answer to anything. If you go back even 50 years ago, it was a sense that, sort of we're going to cut down all the weeds, and in the end we'll be left with the reality of the truth, right? It's what's so radical about Rambam, that he's living in a pre-modern age. And once he discovered modernism, he already figures out the problems of modernism and becomes a postmodern. 1,000 years ago. Really amazing.
Contemporaries and secular philosophy.
Who is contemporaries in secular philosophy? I have no idea. He was highly influenced by Muslim philosophers. Right? He's in Spain, the so-called golden age of Islamic Spain. Right? There's all sorts of great stories. So there's all sorts of great stories about contemporaries of Rambam, and perhaps Rambam, though people don't like saying this out loud, drinking wine with Muslim philosophers, because Muslims aren't allowed to drink wine, and Jews are allowed to drink wine that comes from philosophy and race are very well known, right? He's roughly contemporary with the great poet. We generally read his, he also wrote the great historical work, the Kuzari, thank you, right, which is a historical work of philosophy. Yuval Levy, we don't read it as much. He actually wrote, more than anything else, erotica. Wrote all sorts of erotic poems. Okay, other questions?
Well, you were just talking about this section entitled Mystery of Silly. Is that very specifically a refutation of Rashi?
Yes.
Okay, because it sure sounds like it.
Much more so, it's a refutation of Sadia Gaon, who is the one who comes up with the idea that there's two kinds of laws, those that can be understood and can't be understood. Any other thoughts, any other questions?
Well, just continuing that, I was that part. Basically, he's saying that because Torah is truth. That, and man can't God. So the man accept that it's irrational. God can't be rational.
And it becomes the third level, right? It becomes the third level of Rambam. That in the end, he realizes because you can't answer. So Dan earlier mentioned the Kabbalists. Kabbalah is being invented during this time. Right? The Zohar, the great work of Jewish mysticism, of Kabbalah, is written basically Rambam's life plus 100 years afterwards. And Zohar and the Kabbalists are responding to Rambam. Rambam has changed the Jewish world, and they are responding to Rambam. And the basic idea, and at some level it's not so different from each other, is Rambam says you can know nothing and as such you can know nothing, and thus you should say everything like that. At some level they're the same thing, right? Good. Well, we've tackled God tonight. Tomorrow we will take on Torah. 9:30 a.m. We're going to start 9:30 sharp here so that we can get through services. But if you're running late, come late.
I don't know about that.
It's on the, I don't know where.
Oh, I'm not sure, and Shannon's not here.
Downstairs here.
Where Dan?
One level down.
Right there.
The breakfast.
In the breakfast room. So, presidents, past presidents, we're going to have a little breakfast before.
That's everyone.
And lest you be too worried, this is absolutely the most philosophical thing we are doing. Nothing that we do is going to be philosophy again. This is our philosophy. If you enjoy philosophy, you know. Okay. There you go.
What you want? Oh,
Discussion of the second day of creation.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, in the map chair.
Nice.
Well, without it being. I didn't do the last, he's wondering.
So at apartment, so
That we, and they're
the greatest of the world.
Oh,
It's so not the language lesson. Rambam, I get to Rambam all day.
comprehend or accept any kind of new idea
The Lila Shel
or anything like that.
She's written many
When you send it there.
I kind of always thought it was
It's nice hot notes. Almost immediately, decided that I wanted to be
And
Thank you. Too many like this.
not accepting any issue outside of her own. So that they can be at the level at which it's for visit. Is she talking out of analogy or is she talking out of something that's just been invented?
And he traced the two of us are related to each other too. That actually tracks. And so, you know, I feel like I claim
There's like a sugar
I best friend from childhood.
And then you have to.
I am not going to remember. Just shoot me, and I report it in, and then do that.
I think you guys.
There goes it. I'm more interested in the group. It's,
See you tomorrow. Okay.
Bye, so long, everyone. Good night.
You get asked for.
Are you still in the world?
No, that's what I said, that's free. Post contract. If you didn't charge, then you get it out for free. So we were out. The bullet. You know what tailgating is? We don't usually get the best things. I well, we really got I have donations early on. Yes. Well, that's too much.
And, let me send you. So I have to go back and I don't know. All right. They're treating her for depression. She is on her own now to moving again. And she got, we let her know, is anyone who's heard stuff? And then she may have fallen, she probably didn't fall, she probably go in there. She just got it. That's heavy. I would fall. So, that's the question she is. At this point, he's very strong. Well, little. That's what you want. Getting rid
It's not psychiatric here. We have an estimate.
I just want to know.
Right.
I was born in 79, everything is fine.
I noticed you.
The leadership team, and so I am the coordinator of the consortium, and my job is to help the consortium meet its goals and keep on track. And, you know, what we say we want to have as the purpose, and my goal is to help the strategize about what that purpose is, which we have right now, they say, but that's because they're very long, that's their and she taught us regulation. Well, because the help is, you know what, it's great. No. No, well, not this, but any of the community that you and, you know, all the volunteer work that you do, you know, not stand here. I gotta go. Are you gonna come see the
And that was a full year. I was gonna figure this out.
No, I'm big. I'm she's in a nursing home. She's required. It takes her once a year. And she's not being medical. And for the third time, if they don't, then it's obvious that they have to do it. But all the years, we've done and we're really local communication. And this March, is she going to look? No. So I have any primary care for you.
And they are.
The medication water.
I can't apologize. She's listening to me with that. Ella's not feeling well. She's been in the room. So, so much, for Shannon left, I started being ill. So, she's going to have to try to make her way to the pharmacy or gas station to try to get some medication. But she's
that sort of thing. She's like, go on to church now.
I can't. I think church is price.
She's very quiet. And,
I'll talk to Shannon in a minute and see what she wants to do with this.
But she has that.
Do we have matches? Do we have matches here?
yes, matches are over in that red bag,
I think
the dark red. That's what the red
There, and some people don't want to, basically.
I just washed off the, silver
The laws have a reason.
stuff, and we're ready to go again with that.
If they don't, then no,
Well, not question it and.
But, no napkins.
Absolutely.
But also on the other hand, obviously, you know, I'm not limited. Because as you said, she's very intelligent. If she has not raised a point of order to me, then the reasoning factor is not there. So if.
I know, let Shannon know that.
Right.
Thank you.
You know, I can't understand, you know, a lot of ours, on Friday is their kid. They, and do post, they get so much privilege just theirs to do with whatever that they want to. You don't have to get a new toothbrush. Let's get a new toothbrush first, let's spend this all month. But that's the only thing they can. And that is the only thing that they can focus on and that gives them pleasure. So, you know, and I want to walk out the middle of the shift, and I know I can't.
All right, well,
This is the smallest little thing I get here. And he cried.
all right.
So we see you in the morning. Because it just did that.
First day, something, yes.
Maybe, Rachel, I don't, for you to look at you.
Oh, yeah, you know,
You know what?
all right. Only word to describe. You're.
So fortunate. And she had really interesting. She's a survivor. She is, but I miss her, I miss my and I'm very close to both, which is great. Anyway, what do you think about
She, and
that's what I have to
yeah, because
before they do anything,
they need to check all of her medication.
that's kind of what they decided to go to. Before they decided to get her, she has to be in situation. She couldn't be in a nursing home. She's not at that level. She can't afford an assisted living. There are places that she could go, but she have to move that are at an assisted living. She says, sure. But it was and put back in Camelor and
Look, she's been.
yeah.
We have a young client who wants something for her anxiety, and then she wants something for her ADHD. Well, those are two medications that you cannot give together because they cancel each other out into nothing. So she may be having something along those.
That's
Is she diagnosed just depression or manic depression?
no, not that. They now, so she had this lifetime of she sees that she has to, and she laughs about it. Yeah.
Knowledge if that's what she's doing. Because if you said she sat down for 2 hours outside.
Oh, absolutely.
That's perfect. That's for someone they need to step in. Yeah, they need to step in and care. Because she's not cognizant of that, and that doesn't have her.
Yes. She sees a psychiatrist, I would literally a psychiatrist and a therapist when she can psychiatrist to get on the curve.
Just the psychiatrist, okay, are you able to be in the room with?
Yes, yes. In fact, if you listen every psychiatrist interfaces with her on TV. And then she sees a therapist, and you have therapists too, and the therapist will.
Okay, are you able to, we have to be with our, our clients. I've seen so many behinds, it's just. And all of their appointments. No matter what. Because I just had to take one of our young ones in for her meeting, and I was able to just bring up points of, okay, do you remember this, or do you remember this, or did you want to discuss this, or this, or this?
We're really just getting started on this. She was doing really well, and we were trusting. And you get out of there, and she said, I feel so good when I talk to them. I said, really? I don't know.
How is she forgetful?
Well, it is a memory thing now.
Is she getting out?
And some of the things she do are very individual. For instance, at the end, there's an empty, open yogurt container in the refrigerator. There's on the shelf there is a box of with Roger ice cream. Almost like it. But that's just started. Now, is that the end? Is it the end? Is it pronounced?
How long ago was the end? Okay, good.
But did you just see that starting in the last?
Not really. Yes and no. She's done really strange work. But it's right now. She's talking about people. I know from some of my clients, I don't know how much you like that she
Is she having lucid hallucinations?
yes. She said she's ready when she walked. That's what she described.
She needs to be very.
So it just seems to be the symptoms that she's exhibiting are very, very light when she has mismedication.
You need to, maybe you should request an appointment, or the family should request an appointment with the therapist or the psychiatrist or care. Or caseworker. Yes.
I agree. And she did wonderful care, the rehab, which she took out of after her.
Pressure on.
I was reading her journal actually, which I shouldn't. I was reading her journal, and they started a memory journal at kindergarten. They wanted her to write down all the things she'd done during the day. She was doing that usually. As soon as she knew she was going home, she started talking about all the family so much of it. It was like it's a totally different person.
Stress and anxiety.
So she needs some intense therapy. She needs to find having these medications at least. Anyway, her caseworker had arranged, she sees the psychiatrist again on the 3rd. So we will have a meeting before I want to talk to with Linda there.
No, you want to be afraid
about reducing these medications because she would immediately panic about that. She's doing a crutch. And,
Well, that has to be tested before you take stronger measures. Does she have company during the day besides you?
Well, yes, in fact, they actually are arranging now, starting Wednesday. She will have somebody in every day. And she has,
How does she interact with?
well, is she going to open the door for her? That's going to be the question.
And how do they react?
They'll be very good.
If it's home health or if it's behavior or something like that, they will,
Yeah. I know. Some of them who will do that if she has somebody different every day. That's what it will be. And has to work with us to make that happen. And we just have to keep reinforcing that. So starting Wednesday, she will have right now.
She's going to take workers with her also behavior modifications.
Yes.
And it will take time and there will be tantrums. And there will probably be more acting out, more anxiety. That will be things to watch for.
What kind of behavior monitor would you?
What do we deal with? It's just really, we just had one who puts a lot of our staff in our trouble. And then there's just ones that will just
And what do you do?
withdraw. We'll just withdraw and not want to get out of bed, not want to eat. I mean, it just depends. On the one that put him in a stroke, if he's in, he had to be restrained. Yeah, we can't prone or lupine, not,
No.
but you probably, are familiar. Yeah. And, every situation is different. You have to relate to every individual difference. I had one in the vehicle the other day, was starting to throw a tantrum and getting out of hand, and I'm driving, what am I gonna do? And the way to solve that was, okay, put the visor down, there's a mirror in it, she likes to look in the mirror. So I just looked at that one, I see really long hair. You redirect it instantly, just instant calm and it's very swimming and sometimes you just have to stand back and let it happen.
Yeah.
They're not harming themselves, because sometimes they're wanting that reaction. So, but if you just stand back and let them yell and scream and rave and do whatever and just make sure they're not harming themselves or providing instruction for themselves.
Yeah. With people who are not, don't have quite grasp on reality. Aside from
That's right.
Yeah.
a number of comments.
Some of the places are
Wonderful.
wonderful, and others, oh, much to talk about. So
But, that makes, but,
sounds like the other is beyond just that.
caseworker in the least restrictive environment possible.
You want to start out with the least that you can.
Least restrictive.
You know, I have been Beacon, specialized living. They have been.
I'd be interested just because we have a number of, I don't have some of them. Yeah, it's people who guardianships, conservatorships. People take, I don't They're easiest to me because you go to visit them, you know, you care conferences, you do that kind of thing, when they're on their own. Next year, yeah, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Well, if
I appreciate you listening.
if your lawyer, your daughter decides that her mother gives her more care, does she?
Yes. Oh, she is the guardian? No, but she is the medical attorney, so all that takes is two doctors saying
That she is not capable of maintaining.
Right.
Does she get the similar kind of?
She realized, in fact, when this happened, she was down on the ground and killed.
Yeah, that's a safety issue.
And she is right now doing student teaching. 40 years old, she decided she's going back to school and getting a teaching degree, and she just finished her student teaching. Yeah, great for her. She make it excellent. Student teaching. These kids didn't have, words are bad luck, they would never walk away. That's what it's about. They were up at the university, she and a friend, and car, her husband was driving. Trina was talking to him, putting her books in, talking to him from behind, and thought she was in the car, drove over her foot.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
So she was, student teaching, medical leave. So she's back to her student teaching. She started working with class again. This aneurysm happened. They immediately gave her 2 weeks off. Then on Monday, Tuesday when this all happened, she happened to call me to tell me when her appointment was in Ann Arbor. She asked me that. And I said, I hate to tell you this. I just took your opportunity. But of course, again, it's the last hour, didn't teacher said go. So she's got a lot on her plate right now. But yes, she does. She was thinking right away what are the options were.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there isn't passion funds.
Is she got social security? Because we're having to set one up.
Medicaid will take care of it.
Yes.
Whatever she
The
needs,
cost of them.
that's not a problem, but it's going to mean whatever she should. She's not going to have the independent she wants.
No. And she will also not, will not.
She's not now. It appeals on both.
Yeah, and, you know, and.
Would that be because she's at a lower income level? She would not?
No, because, yeah, well, you know, we have the kitchen in each house, surely. But, you know, we can't be there as employees, as short order cooks when we're having to do everything else. So we have our set menus. So in, you know, in, I guess an easier sense to understand that, it would, in that aspect, it's not like a nursing home environment, but you have your menu. Like if you're in the hospital, you have your menu and this is your choices. Yeah. And
And that's something new.
yes, it is. It is.
It will be, but.
And as you're having your own privacy and watching your television when you want and what shows you want.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
The grades and everything, and let me just tell you, the blue white bags, everything, they're grapes,
Oh,
they're,
wow.
and apples, and.
Can they stay in there?
The last two retreats, I've been just a bouncy
It's a
little
real
baby
thing.
everywhere.
You've been,
These are getting very right. Okay, anything else? Anyway, do you think this is okay?
It's a bit.
Oh, that is fine.
Has been okay.
I know, I can do it. I can actually take it back.
There's enough sodium in there.
I will go back and put it in my.
Go down and choke a horse right now.
You know, we could, I think I probably could have in there. If we want.
If not, I can put it in my fridge.
Oh, okay.
I'll take it back and put it in. The fridge.
How long has she been under the care of, you know, this caseworker? Is this in replacement?
No, she's getting caseworker again. They had actually, changed her status because she appeared to be doing so well. It's because she's telling them that they're realizing that. What she says and what's the reality of truth.
Grape juice, yeah, fridge.
Anyway.
Just have it we got one, we just got, oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. Absolutely.
I thought I could get away with it. Yeah.
Very hygienic, I mean, very everything. And I just saw the other day that she got a bit different. She was using it as a bathroom. And there's I'm shocked and surprised that she's where she is. Let me find some. 9 and 1 and 6 in the other. And what if we get I think 3 or 4 more, and then we'll be at capacity.
Exhausting and
Demanding. It's just demanding, and you have to be well, you know. As a professional. it's not me, that they are not creative in their, oh, I just wanted to. But I had that same student before I started doing this.
We have ice cream walk to our outside.
Oh, you're outside?
Yes.
Oh,
I hate to be the ones.
Gil and I were the first ones.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I think so. No. They had,
We care.
they had on the floor. They said, yes, you know, whether this is the design. I think they did it too. And I said, we're gonna have to go to the elevator. And to get to the elevator, it's bothering him. Yeah, he feels so we're not going there. The second floor, which wasn't too bad. But I took Gil calls. I talked to them, and then on those said, something about, gotta do something. They're just to chop some troughs in so it runs off. Well, they got the guys out there doing things, and we're running it off the hoses and everything else. And I'm thinking, you know, they knew that they have a full hotel room. His comment to Gil was, it's wintertime and we had a storm. And Gil's, but Gil basically goes, you know, it's not a big matter. They do not. No.
Well, my doctor did
Absolutely. And it seems to me these guys are workers, they're not managers. They're basically here to say, hey, yeah, geez, you have to be so I mean, but his comment is winter and we had a storm.
Yeah.
And, you know, the guy, no, it's the older one.
That's so crazy.
One on the left.
It's like it's the evening, it's towards all the.
The girl said, yeah. You know, your iPod snow for.
I know.
Yeah, I know we have storms.
Yeah.
It's the UP. We know
We
this.
didn't come from Florida, folks. So,
We're closer to acting, we really do, but.
tomorrow.
Okay, yes. And I'll bring the rest of.
Okay, next Thursday.
Candy. Why?
Because there is the equipment, that's the only concern.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. My friends here.
Well,
So, let's see.
but after that's because the way it's talking. I mean, that's.
But then, yeah.
She
Everything, I really don't think.
Oh, very good. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Well,